The Alien Academy was always full of strange sounds, but today it was different. The corridors buzzed with low whispers, the clatter of claws on metal floors, and the uneasy rustle of alien skin plate. Something was coming. Everyone could feel it. Even without the announcement screens, the message had already spread. A special guest was arriving for the mixed species combat class. The instructors called it a lesson in fear, the kind of lesson that made stomachs twist. The students waited outside the training hall in small, nervous groups. Some had their hands shaking, others tried to joke, but their voices cracked. In the corner, leaning against the wall, sat Jox, the only human in the entire academy, his posture relaxed like he was waiting for a bus back on Earth. His hands rested behind his head, his eyes half closed, while the others glanced around like prey, waiting for a predator to pounce. A tall insectoid student clicked its mandibles and whispered to a scaly reptilian beside it. "They say it is a killer from the war front. It hunts soldiers for fun." The reptilian swallowed and kept its eyes fixed on the closed steel doors. Jox listened but did not react. He had grown used to hearing that kind of story in this place. The academy was built to train the best fighters of many worlds, and for most species, fear was a tool the instructors liked to use. Suddenly the air shifted. Heavy footfalls echoed beyond the doors, slow and deliberate, each one carrying a weight of threat away. Deep, metallic clank, followed by the hiss of hydraulics, made the alien student step back. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. The doors opened with a slow, grinding sound, revealing a tall shadow that stretched across the hall as it entered. The thing was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, its body wrapped in faded battle armor. Covered with scratches and long, deep scars across the plating, parts of its skin were visible, dark and tough. Like rock, its claws clicked as they touched the floor. Its mouth lined with sharp, uneven teeth. A single red scar cut across one of its eyes, giving it a permanent glare. It stopped at the threshold, scanning the room in complete silence. The alien students stiffened, unable to look away. Heads as a sign of submission, the instructors stepped aside, giving it the space of a predator. Among the crowd, it spotted Jox, sitting with that same lazy posture. The predator's eyes narrowed, expecting the human to flinch, to lower his gaze too. Give some sign of weakness instead? Jox stretched his arms with a faint yawn, and then looked directly at the creature, his mouth curling into a grin. The predator tilted its head as if unsure it had understood what it was seeing. The instructor cleared his throat, his voice lower than usual. "This is your lesson today, class. This predator has destroyed squads of trained soldiers in less than a minute today. You will learn what fear is." The predator took a slow step forward, its claws leaving faint scratches on the metal floor as it moved, its gaze still locked on Jox. The other students stepped aside, creating a path without needing to be told. The air filled with the sound of the predator's breathing, low and steady like a drumbeat. Jox sat, still watching it approach. The predator stopped right in front of him, close enough that the air between them felt heavy. It leaned down, its scarred face inches away from Jox's eyes. The alien students held their breath, sure that the human was about to panic. Jox's grin widened. "Well, you're not the ugliest thing I've seen this week." The predator's nostrils flared. It had expected fear, begging, even trembling, but instead it found a strange, steady calm mixed with something worse for a hunter amusement. The instructor's eyes darted between them, trying to read the situation. The room felt frozen, except for the slow shift of the predator's claws against the floor. The human's voice was almost casual. "Is this supposed to be scary? Back on Earth, we've got spiders bigger than your head that drop from trees and wrap you up before you can blink." The predator blinked slowly, the scarred eye twitching, as if unsure whether to be insulted or curious. Its breathing changed. Slightly heavier now, not from rage but from interest. The alien students could not believe what they were seeing. No one had ever spoken to the predator like that and survived. The instructor gave a sharp command, telling the predator to step back. But the creature didn't move. It stayed locked in that strange, silent contest with Jox. The human's calmness spread an invisible tension through the room. The students found themselves leaning forward without realizing it, every second stretching longer than it should. Jox finally leaned back in his seat, as if the moment bored him. He tapped his fingers on the armrest and muttered almost to himself, "I hope this class gets harder, because right now it feels like recess." The predator's mouth curled into something between a snarl and a smile, and in that instant the instructor realized the lesson was no longer under his control. The predator's claws tapped against the metal floor like slow-ticking clocks as it straightened to its full height, its shadow stretching over the students. Some alien students shuffled back, pressing themselves against the walls, their bodies trembling from instincts they could not control. The instructor hesitated, his mouth opening to speak, but no words came. The predator did not break its gaze from Jocks. As it began to circle the room, its head lowered as it sniffed the air each breath. Rattling through its sharp teeth, the alien students could barely keep their eyes on it. Every instinct screamed for them to look away to avoid drawing attention. The predator stopped near a thin, bird-like student whose feathers puffed out in fear. It lowered its head until its jaws hovered near the student's trembling wing. "Hey!" The bird-like student squeaked and stumbled back, nearly falling over. The predator moved on, ignoring the weak prey as though it was not worth its time. Instead, it kept walking slowly and deliberately toward. The human Jocks had not moved his eyes, following the predator like a man watching a slow parade. The other students exchanged quick glances. Whispers spreading through the room. Was the predator going to attack? The human right here without warning. Jocks didn't seem to care when the predator stopped inches from him again, its breath hot against his face, its claws curling into the floor. The predator's voice came out low and rough in a language most of the class could not understand, but Jocks tilted his head and smirked anyway. "That's supposed to scare me?" he asked, his voice calm but loud enough for everyone to hear. The alien students gasped, some looking toward the instructor, expecting him to intervene. The predator let out a sound between a growl and a laugh, and then, without warning, it moved a claw faster than most could follow. The claw stopped a hair's width from Jocks' neck, not touching. Just hovering there. Jocks didn't blink. His eyes stayed locked on the predators like two predators sizing each other up. The tension in the room grew thick. Even the air felt heavier. The instructor finally barked an order, his voice sharp. "Predator, choose your opponent." The predator's head turned. Slowly scanning the class again, students tried to avoid its gaze, but it seemed to see right through their attempts. It passed by 3 different aliens before stopping once more at Jocks' desk. The predator lifted a claw and pointed directly at him. "You," the single word echoed in the hall. Jocks gave a slow shrug, as if agreeing to help carry something unimportant. "Sure. Why not?" Standing up, he stretched his shoulders and looked around at the frozen class. "Guess I'm about to find out what passes." For a lesson in this place, the predator's eyes glowed faintly, its breathing heavier. Not with anger, but with the anticipation of a hunter facing something new. The alien students moved quickly to clear space, forming a wide circle around the tape circle around the 2 figures. The walls of the training hall seemed to close in as silence fell. Everyone could hear the faint hum of the overhead lights and the quiet sound of Jocks rolling his neck to loosen it. The instructor swallowed hard before speaking. "The first test begins now." Without warning, the predator lunged, its claws slicing through the air with a speed that made several students flinch back. Jocks moved to the side with quick, controlled steps, avoiding the attack by the width of a hair. The predator spun, striking again, this time lower and faster. Jocks bent backward, letting the claw pass over him, then stepped in close, forcing the predator to adjust its stance. The watching students couldn't believe it. No one had ever moved like that against the predator without being ripped apart. The predator paused for a fraction of a second, its eyes narrowing in curiosity, as if realizing this would not be a simple display. "Gosh, you guys," smiled again, his voice steady. "All right, let's see what you've got." The predator stepped back, its claws flexing, as it studied Jocks more carefully now. The easy kill it had expected was nowhere to be found.
Ow.
The alien students stood frozen around the circle, afraid to even breathe too loudly. The instructor's eyes flicked between the 2 fighters, unsure whether to stop the match or let it continue. The predator lunged again, but this time, Jocks didn't dodge completely. Instead, he let the claw graze his arm, leaving a shallow cut. A thin line of red blood appeared, and several aliens gasped, some even recoiling at the sight. Jocks glanced at the cut, then back at the predator. "You're faster then. I thought, but you're still pulling your punches, aren't you?" The predator made a low growl, not out of anger, but interest. It had faced prey that fought to survive, but never prey that mocked it while bleeding. Jock stepped sideways, keeping his movements light and fluid, the kind of footwork that came from years of practice, not fear. The predator struck again, but Jock slipped past it and tapped the creature's armored shoulder with the back of his hand, as if tagging it in a game of chase. The crowd murmured in disbelief. The predator was supposed to be the one playing with its food, not the other way. Around after a tense moment, the predator halted and straightened its posture, tilting its head as if reassessing the human before it. Jock met its stare without blinking, his expression still casual. The alien students couldn't understand it. Most of them had been raised on worlds where danger meant immediate retreat, where survival instincts were absolute. But here was a human who looked at a killing machine and seemed entertained. Jock noticed the stares from the crowd and decided to speak up. "You all think this thing is scary because it's big and has claws. Let me tell you something about where I come from." A stepped back from the predator slightly so his voice could carry to everyone on Earth. "We've got jungles where every plant either poisons you or tries to eat you. We've got oceans with creatures that hunt in total darkness, and deserts so hot they can boil you from the inside if you're not careful." Alien students listened wide-eyed. The predator itself didn't move, but its gaze stayed locked on Jock's, as though each word was part of the fight. Jock went on. "We've got storms that can rip houses out of the ground, animals with teeth that can crush bone like it's nothing, even insects that can take down creatures bigger than themselves. And the funny part is, that's just the wildlife. We haven't even talked about what humans do to each other." The bird-like student from earlier shivered softly, clutching its wings tighter. Another student muttered in their native tongue, "That planet sounds cursed." Jock just smiled. "That's why we call it a death world. But here's the thing. When you grow up there, you learn real quick that fear doesn't keep you alive, action does." The predator's breathing had changed. It was deeper, more focused now, as if the human's words were stoking something inside it. Perhaps respect, perhaps challenge. The instructor, sensing the shift, didn't dare interrupt. The predator took a slow step forward, and for the first time, its voice came out low and deliberate. "You have fought things worse than me." Jock raised an eyebrow. "Worse, faster, meaner, and hungrier." We took another step closer until he was within striking distance again. "You want to keep going, or are you just here?" Four-story team. A low rumble came from the predator's throat, not a growl of anger, but something almost like amusement. The alien students didn't know it yet, but for the predator this moment was rare. It had met countless opponents, but few ever made it feel like the fight mattered. The predator's claws flexed once more, and it gave a slow nod. Jock grinned wider. "Good, I was hoping you'd say that." The crowd around the training pit shifted uneasily as the predator crouched lower, its stance no longer casual, but ready for a true hunt. The air felt heavier, the hum of the lights above drowned beneath the slow, pounding thud of the predator's steps as it began to circle Jock. The alien students had seen matches here before, but never like this. Normally, the predator's target would be sprawled on the ground within seconds. Yet here stood the human's still relaxed shoulders, loose eyes tracking every movement as if studying a puzzle instead of facing a killer. The instructor stayed silent, sensing that nothing he said would stop what was about to happen. Without warning, the predator launched forward faster than the first time, its claws cutting through the air with enough force to leave faint streaks in the light. Jock didn't move back. Instead, he stepped into the attack, twisting his body just enough for the claw to pass over his shoulder. His left hand shot out, grabbing the predator's wrist, while his right elbow smashed against the creature's armored ribs. The impact made a deep metallic thud, and the predator grunted, a sound more of surprise than pain. The alien students gasped, some clutching each other's arms. Jock used the predator's momentum to spin it sideways and force it to take 2 steps to keep its balance. No one in the class had ever seen someone push the predator back before. The predator straightened its head, tilting slightly, the scarred eye narrowing. In focus, it swung again, this time a sweeping arc meant to slice Jock's legs, but the human jumped over it, twisting mid-air and landing just far enough away to reset his stance. It wasn't just dodging, he was controlling the pace of the fight. The predator realized this too and adjusted, moving in with shorter, quicker strikes, forcing Jock to react. The sound of claws hitting the floor mixed with the dull thuds of boots on metal, every movement sharp and precise. The alien students couldn't look away, their instincts torn between terror of the predator and shock at the human's fearlessness. Half a minute passed, though to the crowd it felt longer. Sweat began to bead on Jox's forehead, but his grin never faded. He dodged another heavy strike, then stepped close enough to tap the predator on the chest with 2 fingers. Like I said back home, we call this Tuesday. The predator's lips pulled back, revealing more of its jagged teeth, and for the first time it spoke in a voice loud. Enough for all to hear you fight like prey that thinks it is a hunter. Jox tilted his head. No, I fight like a hunter that's been preyed before. You learn fast that way. Something in those words lit a fire in the predator's stance. It roared and charged, forcing Jox to meet it head-on. The two clashed in a blur of motion, claws striking against arms, fists slamming into armor. The noise of each blow echoed in the hall, making the alien students flinch again and again. Finally, with a sharp pivot, Jox hooked his leg behind the predator's knee and slammed his shoulder into its chest. The predator hit the floor hard, the impact rattling the ground. The crowd erupted in a mix of gasps and cries. Jox didn't press the attack. Instead, he stepped back, giving the predator room to stand. The predator rose slowly, eyes locked on the human. But there was no anger there now, only something the alien students didn't recognize: respect. Then, breathing heavy, the instructor looked from one to the other, realizing this fear lesson had turned into something much bigger. This wasn't prey against predator anymore. This was two warriors testing each other, and the class had just witnessed the start of something dangerous. The training hall still hummed with the aftershock of the fight as the predator stood upright, its massive frame casting a long shadow over Jox. The alien students didn't speak. No one wanted to break the strange electricity in the air. The predator's breathing was steady now, the kind of rhythm a warrior had when they were no longer testing an opponent, but acknowledging them. The instructor hesitated before stepping forward, unsure if the match was truly over. He had brought the predator here to frighten the class, to teach them how fear controlled survival, but what had happened was the opposite. The predator had failed to break the human, and worse, it seemed to like that fact. Jox rolled his shoulders, his expression still wearing that same faint grin. His arm still bled from the earlier cut, but he didn't bother looking at it. He looked at the predator like he was deciding whether to push the fight further or call it done. The predator finally spoke, its voice deep and carrying. Across the hall, "You are not prey." Jox chuckled softly and pointed back. "You're not bad yourself." The alien students glanced at each other in disbelief. At the predator wasn't supposed to speak to students at all, much less compliment them. From that day, the academy's training grounds changed. The predator began showing up in Jox's combat drills, not as an enemy to crush, but as a sparring partner. At first, the instructors allowed it out of curiosity, but soon they noticed something unsettling. Every time the two trained, the predator's techniques shifted sharper, faster, more unpredictable. Jox matched at every step, the pair pushing each other beyond the limits set by the academy rules. The alien students began gathering just to watch them fight, and soon whispers about the human who laughed at death spread beyond the campus. One afternoon, during a weapons exercise, a smaller insectoid student struggled to hold a heavy staff. The predator stepped forward from the sidelines and, without a word, adjusted the student's stance, showing them how to brace against an opponent. Jox watched from across the room, smirking. "So you're teaching now, huh?" The predator gave no reply, but its actions spoke enough, the fear it had once inspired. was still there, but now it was different, less of a threat, more of a force that others wanted to learn from, and Jox was right beside it. Every time in the mess hall, aliens from all species began sitting nearer to Jox, some asking about Earth's battles, others just listening to his stories about jungles, storms, and predators back home. Even the ones who had once avoided him now stayed close, drawn in by the quiet confidence he carried. The predator often sat silently at his side, its presence enough to keep trouble away. The instructors knew they had lost control of the original lesson. Instead of creating a warning about fear, they had built something far more unpredictable, a human. Deathworlder bonded with one of the deadliest hunters. In the sector late one evening, as the training hall lights dimmed, the predator stopped Jox before he left. It spoke in a low voice heard only by him. "There will be another test soon." Not from the instructors, but from outside. Jox raised an eyebrow. "Outside, huh? Guess we'll see if they're scarier than you." The predator's eyes gleamed faintly in the shadows. "We will see together." And with that, it turned away, leaving Jox to wonder what exactly was coming and why the predator sounded almost eager for it. The warning came sooner than anyone expected. The next week began like any other, the alien students dragging themselves into the training hall while instructors barked orders. Jox noticed the predator wasn't in its usual place, leaning against the far wall. Instead, the instructors were moving with an edge of urgency, whispering in low voices. A moment later, the steel blast doors at the far end hissed open and something heavy rolled inside. At first it looked like a large crate, but then the panels unfolded, revealing a tall, skeletal frame of black alloy with long bladed arms and a head shaped like a hunting spear. Its eyes glowed cold white, and its voice rang out flat. And mechanical combat unit for 9 engaged. The alien students stepped back, some stumbling into each other. The instructors spoke quickly. "This is a military-grade war machine. It was designed to wipe out enemy squads in under 30 seconds. It will demonstrate why hesitation means death before the machine could move." A new sound filled the room, a deep growl, not from fear, but challenge. The predator emerged from the opposite entrance, its scarred form moving with slow confidence. It stepped between the machine and the class, every movement radiating a promise of violence. The alien students froze, watching two nightmares face each other. The predator's voice cut through the hall. "If you want to scare them, you'll have to get through us." The alien students blinked, unsure they had heard correctly. "Us." The predator tilted its head toward Jox, standing a few steps away. The human smiled like someone who had been waiting for this all week. "Guess class just got interesting." The war machine lunged first, its metal limbs cutting the air with lethal precision. The predator moved to intercept, blocking one blade with its armored forearm. The impact rang out like a gong. Jox slipped around to the machine's side, his fist striking at exposed joints, sparks flashing with each hit. The alien students could only stare as the two deadliest beings they knew fought in perfect rhythm. The predator's claws tore into alloy, while Jox's speed kept the machine from targeting either of them cleanly. The instructors had expected screams. Instead, they got the roar of the predator and the sharp laugh of the human. The machine adapted fast switching tactics and trying to separate them, but every time it moved one way, the other was already there, forcing it back step by step. The predator slammed into its torso, driving it toward the wall, while Jox leapt onto its back, yanking free a bundle of exposed cables. The machine's glowing eyes flickered its movements, slowing before it collapsed with a metallic crash. The hall fell silent, except for the hiss of coolant leaking from the broken frame. Jox landed lightly on the floor, brushing dust from his hands. The predator straightened, looking down at the wreckage before glancing at the class. Lesson over. The alien students didn't cheer. They didn't need to. The sight burned into their minds was enough. The predator and the human stood side by side, not as hunter and prey, but as a team. The instructors exchanged looks, knowing they could never undo what had formed here. Instead of creating fear, they had built something the galaxy rarely saw: an alliance between two apex predators. Jox glanced at the predator, a faint smirk on his face. "You know they're going to send something worse next time." The predator's mouth curled into that strange half-smile. Let them. And in that moment, everyone in the room understood the same truth. No matter what came next, the human Deathworlder and the scarred predator would face it together, and the galaxy would be the one to fear them.